Hi guys, my name is Sam. I am a dog and cat nutritionist and proud owner of a small chain of independent pet shops in the northeast of England. Today, if you shop at Pets at Home, we are going to be reviewing some of the dog foods you can shop there, and we are going to cover a lot of ground. Now, before we start, there's a few things I want to say. The first thing is that finding the perfect dog food for you is an individual experience. It depends on your budget, your lifestyle, and how many dogs you own. So if I don't say something you like about your dog food, don't take it personal. It's just an opinion because every dog is different. The second thing I want to emphasize, just like with human nutrition, any dietitian, any nutritionist worth their salt is going to look at the ingredients and it's going to derive the nutritional value from the ingredients, not the other way around. Just like with human food, we wouldn't just blindly trust manufacturers on all the vitamins and minerals something has. What we are going to do is turn that bag of food over and those treats and those baby biscuits and see that these contain sugar. And if something contains sugar or something I don't like that is heavily processed or something suspicious there, well, something is suspicious then. So instead of blindly trusting manufacturers or veterinarians or people in the shop, you always need to read the ingredients. And if he says sugar derivatives, or you see certain ingredients that we are going to cover, maybe you need to rethink what you're giving your dog. Now let's start with the Pets at Home Complete Nutrition Dry Adult Dog Food, and this is the chicken 15 kilos. Now you can get this for under £20, and that says a lot about a dog food that is 15 kilos for under £20. Now the ingredients here are cereals, meat and animal derivatives, of which 14% is chicken. The rest, they do not tell you what it is. So they can maybe reserve the right to change which meat and which animal derivatives go into the recipe. 14% is always going to be chicken, but the rest, we don't know what it is. We then have derivatives of vegetable origin and some vegetables, peas, etc., etc. The protein content is 22%, which is very, very low. And we want to be paying for protein. We want to be paying for meat in the supermarket, in dog food, and in human food as well. So we do not like cereals. We don't like meat and animal derivatives. What we want is specificity. So Pets at Home Complete Nutrition, 15 kilos for under £20. If you are extremely stretched and your dog doesn't have any dietary requirements, then these could do. But do not be surprised if your dog develops any allergies or any sort of health issues as a result of eating something so vague and so low quality. The second one is Wildways, and this is the dry adult dog food, fresh beef with buffalo and vegetables. So we have a novel protein there, such as buffalo, which is pretty good. So the first ingredient is fresh beef, and that's 40%, which is wonderful. That's what we want to do. The first ingredient we want to see as protein, as a source of protein coming from an animal. So fresh beef, incredible. It's fresh and it's beef. Great. The second one is buffalo protein, and that's 26%. It isn't fresh buffalo, it's buffalo protein. So they will have probably extracted the protein from the buffalo. We then have peas, 14%, and poultry fat, about 5%. Be careful here because it does contain poultry fat. So if your dog has a suspected chicken allergy, for example, you will be feeding your dog some poultry, some chicken, and then we have 2% chicken liver. So it's incredible that they have fresh beef 40%, and then the second is buffalo protein, which is 26%. Peas 14%. The thing with peas, it isn't a bad carbohydrate. It isn't a bad filler, because at the end of the day, that's what they are. The thing we see with peas sometimes in certain foods is that a tiny minority of dogs develop some flatulence. So if your dog doesn't agree with peas, that's something that you might have to look out for. But all in all, this is not a bad food at all. Wildways, fresh beef, buffalo protein, Let's move on. You can Uber, medium breed, adult dry dog food, chicken, 12%. You get this for about £40. The ingredients are dried chicken and turkey, and this is 23%, including chicken, which is 14%. A natural source of glucosamine. Glucosamine is what cartilage is made out of, and it's really good for joints. Chondroitin, glucosamine and chondroitin, really good for joint prevention, retention, if you have a dog with arthritis, etc., etc. Taurine is pretty important for dogs and cats as well. We then have fresh chicken, 17%, and then we have maize, wheat, poultry fat, barley, sorghum, oats, chicken gravy, etc., etc. I don't like maize, I don't like wheat, I don't like poultry fat, which is very, very unspecific. I don't like barley. So maize, wheat, and barley tend to be some of the most common allergens when it comes to dogs. So we always say to people that if you see maize, wheat, barley, or rice, try to stay away from them because they are extremely cheap fillers and they do not really do anything for our dogs in terms of diet. They do not have any dietary requirement for wheat or barley or sorghum. So this is something I would absolutely avoid. Eukanuba is one of the OGs. They have been around forever. At one point, they were very heavily recommended by vets. Now vets have moved on somewhere else and they do not recommend Eukanuba as much. It's a dog food we do not like, and it's a dog food that because it contains maize, wheat, barley, and poultry fat, it's not something that we would recommend. Arden Grange, chicken with rice. Anytime we see chicken and rice, the problem with rice is that rice expands when you cook it. So if I give you 100 grams of rice, whenever I boil them and I am making my curry, those 100 grams might turn into 200. They are going to expand. That rice is going to expand. That's why I don't like it, because it's a little bit deceiving. So the first ingredient here is chicken, which is good. We have chicken meat meal. So anytime you see meat meal, that is the lowest quality or one of the lowest quality meats you can get. It's a rendered powder and it isn't very good quality. It isn't high quality at all. You then get fresh chicken and that's at 5%. So the bulk of the chicken is coming from meat meal, which isn't very fresh. The fresh chicken is 5%. We rather see 27% fresh chicken and 5% chicken meat meal, but no, it's the other way around. So we do not like that. Rice, 26%. Again, rice expands when you cook it. You can try this at home. That's why we do not like rice. Rice isn't really biologically appropriate for a dog if you think about it. If you give your dog rice, they cannot chew it, they cannot masticate it, and the rice is going to go everywhere. That's a very clear indication you shouldn't be feeding your dog rice. Just because your dog can digest some rice doesn't mean that you should give them 26% rice every single day. And then we have maize, refined chicken oil, etc., etc. So we have here chicken meat meal, I'm not a fan. Rice, not a fan. Maize, not a fan. Arden Grange, sensitive, grain-free adult dry dog food, fish and potato. Just because something is grain-free, that doesn't necessarily make it better. I can swap rice for white potato, for example, and it's a bit of a filler as well, and that can be a very carb heavy dog food, and so grain-free isn't necessarily better. A lot of these companies, they will just put whatever they want on the label and try to make you buy it or try to convince you that that is a better alternative. It might be, but it might not be as well. So the ingredients here are fresh ocean whitefish, which is good, 22%. Sweet potato, it's a low glycemic carbohydrate, is 22%, which is a little high. Ocean whitefish meal, 18%. Potato, 18%. Refined chicken oil. So if your dog is sensitive and your dog is reactive to chicken, then this recipe contains chicken. I like the ocean whitefish, the whitefish. I do not like the potato and sweet potato comprising a lot of the recipe. I am not really a fan. Fish for dogs, superior complete, regular kibble, adult dry, dog food salmon, 12 kilos. The ingredients here: salmon 26%, that's good. Potato 26%, not so good. We rather see a higher percentage of meat than of the carbohydrate. Dogs can actually make their own blood sugar, their own energy from protein and fat exclusively in a process called gluconeogenesis. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis on feeding your dog any carbohydrates, any starches. Salmon meal, 17%, okay. Pea starch, not a fan, that's a filler, that's 17%. Salmon oil, 6.2%, that's high in my opinion. I rather have it more as salmon than salmon oil, because salmon oil at the end of the day is not as expensive as the real deal salmon or salmon meal even. And then we have pea fiber, etc, etc. And by the way, if you want to know what the best dog food is, you can download a free guide, How to Feed Your Dog Better. Click in the link below, How to Feed Your Dog Better. Step up to naturals, no added grain, adult dry dog food, beef and sweet potato. You can get 14 kilos of this baby for less than £35, which is a bit of a deal really. Beef and meat meal, again, beef and meat meal. 27%, including meat and bone 18%, beef greaves 9%. So meat and bone, any meat and bone. We don't really know whether that's chicken, whether that's beef, it's kangaroo, it's pork. We have no idea. They don't tell you. They reserve the right to change the recipe as they see fit, which is not something I like. Beef and meat meal. Meat meal, again, is a very low quality rendered powder, rendered meat. Not a fan. Beef greaves, dried sweet potato, dry peas, poultry fat, again, poultry gravy, very unspecific, not a real fan. For the money, it's a step up, as the food suggests. However, it's very unspecific and not an amazing quality dog food in our opinion. Chappy, complete adult dog food, and this is in the wet variety, something that certain veterinarians still recommend to this day for whenever your dog has any sensitivities, any gut issues. And it's a pretty bad food in our opinion, and I'll tell you why. The ingredients: cereals, including whole wheat, 4%. So 4% is whole wheat, the rest is any cereals. We then have, again, meat and animal derivatives. This we don't know. If your dog is having a bit of an upset, right, or a bit of an icky tummy or whatever, what we want to do is traceability. We want to know which protein, which food I am actually feeding the dog. But meat and animal derivatives is very unspecific. We have 15%, including chicken, 4%. The rest, again, they don't tell you what it is. Oils and fats, derivatives of vegetable origin, and they put an asterisk as natural ingredients. Yeah, if meat and animal derivatives is a natural ingredient, then what can we say? The protein is 20%, and this is very low. This, in my opinion, is a very poor quality dog food. I highly encourage anyone to read the ingredients on the back of everything they feed themselves and you feed your dog. Putch and Mud, Calm and Relax, complete dry dog food, turkey, 10 kilos. You get it for around £50. The ingredients: fresh turkey, great. Fresh turkey being the first ingredient is a winner. We then have sweet potato and turkey protein. Not more fresh turkey, but turkey protein. They also do not specify the amount of sweet potato they put in the recipe, which is something I don't like. I want to know what percentage precisely of sweet potato you're putting in the recipe. Turkey protein, I'd rather see turkey, fresh turkey, as opposed to turkey protein. Not a fan. Potatoes, once again, it's any potatoes, and we do not know the percentage, although the percentage will be lower than 17%. Turkey fat, 1.5%, turkey gravy, etc, etc. This food, for the money, you can get much better foods if you shop independent, and you don't have to buy from us, but if you visit your local pet shop, you will be able to find a much better food, in our opinion, than Putch and Mud. You'll be independent, you'll be supporting independence, and you will be feeding your dog better, in our opinion. Fresh turkey, okay. Sweet potato, not being specific, and turkey protein, for the price, not very good in our opinion. Wagg, active goodness, working adult dry dog food. Anytime you see a working dog food, that means it doesn't attract VAT. It doesn't mean it's for working dogs. It doesn't mean that it contains better nutrients or minerals or whatever. It just means it doesn't attract VAT. So this is a bit of a trope in the pet food industry, and it's something we don't like. Now, you get 12 kilos for about £12 here. I mean, working complete with chicken and veg. If you get about a kilo per pound, this cannot be very good quality. I mean, rice from the supermarket is more than £1 sometimes, so it cannot be all that good. The ingredients: 26% meat meal and gravy with minimum 5% chicken, whole grain wheat, whole grain barley, vegetable fibers, maize 2%, chicken fat. It is what it is, folks. This isn't a very good dog food. It isn't going to do anything for your dog, and it's very low in protein, only 20% protein. Not a fan of Wagg. We then have the Wagg meaty goodness, and then this is another dry adult dog food, and this is a chicken variety. 26% meat meal and gravy, again with minimum 5% chicken. Very, very similar to the other recipe. Whole grain wheat, not a fan of wheat. Whole grain barley, not a fan of barley. Vegetable fiber, okay. Maize 2%, not a fan of wheat, not a fan of barley, not a fan of maize. Absolutely not a fan of meat meals or anything like that. Skinners, another OG of the industry, and this is the field and trial, and these come in 15 kilo sacks. Now, the ingredients of Skinners: maize is the first ingredient. We do not want maize as the first ingredient. We want high meat, low carbohydrate. Wheat is the second ingredient, and then the third ingredient is poultry meat meal. Not chicken, not turkey, no nothing. It's poultry meat meal. We do not know which bird that is. Barley and poultry fat, vitamins and minerals. I would never ever give this to my dog. Maize, wheat, poultry meat meal, barley, poultry fat. Absolutely not. This, in our opinion, is McDonald's for dogs. Skinners, field trial, adult dry dog food, salmon and rice. What did I say about rice? Not a fan of rice. Brown rice, 40.3%. That's a lot of rice. Not a fan of rice. Second one is salmon meal, 26%. Okay. Naked oats, linseed, etc., etc. So a bit higher in protein, 25%. The first ingredient being rice is not something I like. If you are going to buy a Skinner's dog food, and we wouldn't recommend it, buy this instead of the others. It's a lot better, but still not very good, really. Harringtons, just 6 complete. And these is the ingredients: lamb and salmon, 50.5%. Freshly prepared lamb is 22%. Dried lamb, 24%. Freshly prepared salmon oil, 3%. Freshly prepared lamb gravy, 1.5%. Dried potato, 20%. Sweet potato, 17%. Peas, 11%. Now, this is a very, very acceptable food for the money. Lamb and salmon, really good. 50.5%, really good. Freshly prepared lamb, a high quality meat, and freshly prepared lamb, 22%, dried lamb, 24%, and then we have all the bits and bobs. Yes, it's high in dried potato, high in sweet potato and peas, but for the price, this is a very, very acceptable food in our opinion. Can you do better? Of course you can do better. This is not a cheap food at all, and you could totally do better if you weren't independent, but this is a better food than a lot of others we have been reviewing. Wellness Core, complete medium large breed. They are all going to be very, very similar. The ingredients: salmon, 32%. We then have fresh salmon, 16%. Dehydrated salmon, 16%. Peas, 16%. Dehydrated tuna, 13%. Dried potatoes, rapeseed oil, potato protein, Potato protein, interesting. Not potato, but potato protein. A natural flavor. I don't like natural flavors in dog food. It's an artificial, even more artificial than a lot of these ingredients. And I am not a fan of something so unspecific. Salmon, yes, fresh salmon, 16%. Dehydrated salmon, 16%. You know, it's a dog food, I suppose. Lily's Kitchen. Very, very interesting dog food. Quite a premium for the price dog food. Very, very popular back in the day. Still quite popular. 42% chicken and duck. Fresh chicken, 31%. Boom. Freshly prepared duck, 8%. Chicken liver, 3%. Sweet potatoes, 29%. Whole peas, 6.5%. Whole lentils, pea protein, potato protein, chicken gravy, etc., etc. For the money, this is a very, very expensive dog food. The quality is okay. This is an acceptable food. This is a good food, what we would say. But 12 kilos, north of 80 pounds or north of 70 pounds, the price has skyrocketed for Lily's Kitchen. It's not a bad food, but if I had 80 pounds or 70 pounds to spend on a dog food, I can totally find you a much, much better dog food. I can find you a Ferrari instead of something like this, which is going to be a lot more expensive. They've done a really good job at marketing, if anything. So props to them, props to the brand. Moving on, Bakers. Bakers is once again one of the OGs, and a lot of vets are against Bakers because it's pretty, in everyone's opinion really, the consensus is that it isn't very good. And I'll tell you why. Ingredients, cereals, whole grains, 54%. Again, we don't like cereals. We don't like whole grains, 54% to be the first ingredient. Absolutely not. We then have meat and animal derivatives, 15% in the chunk, whatever that means. Derivatives of vegetable origin, oils and fats, vegetable protein extracts. Protein, 21%. Not very good. I don't like Bakers. Anything that says with chicken, with beef, the minimum legal requirement is 4%. So if you see with gravy or with chicken, with beef, with sardines, with the term with, that means that it might only be 4% of the real thing. I would never feed my dog Bakers. Green Pantry. Adult dry dog food with pumpkin and apple. Apple, very beneficial for dogs. Pumpkin, source of fiber for dogs. So if your dog has any sort of gut issues, a little bit of pumpkin paste, not raw pumpkin paste, but you have to process it somehow. Really, really good. Chicken, 78%. Really, really good. Including freshly prepared chicken, 46%. Dry chicken, 30%. Chicken stock, 2%. Sweet potato, 9%. Potato, 6%. Peas, 3%. This is a good food. This is a good food. It's something you might not be paying attention to because they are trying to sell you something else, or marketing is trying to sell you something else. But this is a really good food for the price. Chicken, 78%. That's 80% almost chicken. And then we have very low carbohydrates. Sweet potato, 9%. Potato, 6%. Peas, 3%. The protein here is 39%. And by the way, there isn't something as too much protein. Your body, my body, and our dog's bodies cannot store protein. We cannot store protein. We either consume protein or oxidize protein. We do not have the ability to convert that protein or to store that protein in any way. So there isn't such a thing as too much protein. Your dog might have a reaction to the protein, to the specific chicken or beef or whatever, but there isn't such a thing as high protein or too much protein. That is an absolute trope, and there have been many randomized human controlled trials and meta-analyses and studies on this. So yes, there isn't such a thing as too much protein. Absolute fallacy. Hey, This is a good food. Burns. This is almost £60 for 12 kilos. The ingredients, brown rice, 67%. The second ingredient is chicken meal. Again, meal. I'm not a fan of meal. 20%. Oats, peas, and chicken oil. This isn't a food we would ever want to sell in our shops, or this is not something I would endorse, or this isn't something we like. We just don't like burns. Chicken and brown rice. It's more like brown rice and a little bit of chicken, isn't it? Because brown rice is almost 70% of the recipe. The protein is 18.5%. That's way too low. It's absolutely way too low. No wonder why some dogs sometimes are so hungry. Protein has a much higher satiety ratio as carbohydrates, for example. So if you have carbohydrates all the time, you aren't going to feel as full as protein. Protein also has the highest thermic effect of food and is the only macronutrient out of carbohydrates, proteins and fats that requires energy to burn. So the more protein you consume, the more you are going to burn. It's a really, really good thermogenesis, the thermic effect of food. It's really, really important to give our dogs, which are meat eaters, a high meat dog food. And this isn't one, I'm afraid. We aren't fans. Dr. John, so this is, again, sub £20. So for the price, you have to temper your expectations. And they are all going to be very, very similar, I would say. The first ingredient being wheat. The second would be poultry meal, 14% chicken, maize, chicken fat, etc., etc. Wheat is low in leucine, for example, an essential amino acid. Not a fan. We want protein. Poultry meal, not a fan. Chicken gravy, okay. Protein, 20%. Very, very low indeed. Very low quality indeed. This isn't a food we would recommend. James Wellbeloved, turkey and rice. Let's look at the ingredients, shall we? Turkey meal, 23.3%. Brown rice, 22.3%. White rice, 22%. Naked oats, we don't know. Turkey fat, turkey gravy. So turkey meal is 23.3%. That's okay. But we then have almost 50% here in carbohydrates. Brown rice, white rice, and that is going to expand when you cook it. And then we have naked oats. Absolutely not a fan of James Wellbeloved. Back in the day, this was okay. Nowadays, you can get much, much better foods. All these brand has nowadays is reputation, really good marketing. They have the right distribution channels, so you can buy anywhere. In terms of quality, we wouldn't really recommend it, even though they say hypoallergenic, whatever. Hypoallergenic doesn't really mean anything, and I'll go into that later on. Let's look at the grain-free, and this is the fish and veg. Ingredients: fish meal, 24.8%. Amazing. Potato flakes, 24.7%. Pea starch, 24.7%. Tomato, pomace, fish stock, whole linseed oil. So we have potato flakes and pea starch, again, at over 50% of the bag. You see, grain-free doesn't mean this is better. It just means it's grain-free. They're not lying to you. They're not saying it's better quality, go for this instead of that. It's the same quality as the grain counterpart, and it's not something very good. We wouldn't recommend this. Fish meal, yes. Potato flakes and pea starch, not really. Let's move on. Harringtons, complete natural senior dry dog food, chicken and rice. Anything chicken and rice, not a fan. Chicken and meat meals, again, 26%. Dried chicken, 6.5%. Okay, dried chicken is 6.5%. The rest will probably be a meat meal, which is a low quality ingredient. Not a fan. Barley, maize, rice, oats. So dogs do not have any dietary requirement for carbohydrates, let alone heavily processed carbohydrates. When you combine certain proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, you cook them at very high temperatures, they release acrylamides. Not very good. Freshly prepared chicken, 4%. Great. That's 4%, only 4%. Protein, 20%. Not very high in protein. This, it's an okay food. it's a passable food. It's a, whatever. But your dog is not going to love it, let me tell you. Or if they do, they do. But, IAMs. You can buy them pretty much anywhere these days. This has moved into supermarkets. It has moved onto all sorts of channels. The ingredients are dried chicken and turkey, which is great. That's 30%, including chicken 18%. Phenomenal. We then have maize grits, barley, animal fat, and fresh chicken 4.8%. I don't like maize grits, I don't like maize, I don't like barley, I don't like animal fat. That's quite unspecific. I love fresh chicken. I love giving my dog or my cat fresh chicken if I were giving them a dog food like this. But I wouldn't want to give them barley, animal fat, or maize grits. So this would be a no from me. The protein is 26%, which is slightly higher, but still. Pedigree. What can we say about Pedigree that hasn't been said so far? Pedigree, well, the ingredients. Cereals is the first ingredient. That's everything you need to know. We then have meat and animal derivatives, and that's 17%, including 4% beef in the brown kibbles. This is like cereal. This is like sugary cereal, where you have to have different ingredients for different colors inside the package. So listen, not a fan. We then have dried carrot, 4% carrot in the orange kibbles, and then 4% peas in the green kibbles. Natural ingredients, brown kibbles, typically 80% of product. Listen, Pedigree, it is what it is. We just what can we say? Autarky, complete adult, working dry dog food. Again, it doesn't attract VAT. It doesn't mean it's better. It doesn't mean it's for working dogs. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that it doesn't attract VAT. Salmon, minimum 35%. Phenomenal. Rice, minimum 33%. So rice 33%, salmon 35%. So they sort of like even themselves out, cancel themselves out. Whole oats, maize, chicken fat, poultry meal. This isn't a terrible food, but it's high in rice. It's very high in rice because that rice is, again, going to expand when you cook it. You can try this at home. Anytime you cook or make a curry, that's what's going to happen. So I wouldn't really recommend it. Crave, ingredients. Natural beef, 29%. Fresh beef, 17.5%. Beef greaves protein, okay. Pea starch, all right. Dry turkey protein, okay. So you are compromising here in pea starch, beef greaves protein, and dry turkey protein. But this is a much better food because look at all the animal ingredients here. Look at all the animal protein you're getting. Natural beef, fresh beef, beef greaves protein, and dry turkey protein. Protein 36%. Remember, there isn't such a thing as too much protein. Your body either consumes protein or oxidizes protein. The body does not have the ability to convert protein into fat. It just doesn't happen. So when calories are equated, protein is what we want to concentrate on for our dogs. So Crave, pretty good with lamb and beef. Phenomenal. Grain-free, high in protein is what you want really. High levels of satiety, etc., etc. Arkwrights, complete with beef. Anytime you see with beef or with something, you have to pay attention to the nomenclature, to the names of these things. The first ingredient, cereals, meat and animal derivatives, minimum 10% beef, oils and fats. Cereals, meat and animal derivatives, oils and fats, minerals, protein, 18%. What do you want me to say? Wellness core. Ingredients, turkey, 28%. Fresh turkey, 16%. Dehydrated turkey, 12%. Chicken, 24%. Dehydrated chicken, 16%. Chicken gravy, 5%. Chicken fat, 3%. Peas, 16%. Dry potatoes, beet pulp, potato protein, okay. Once again, protein, 33%. This is a pretty good food. For the price, this is a pretty good food, you know. Turkey, 28%. Chicken, 24%. If your dog is not reactive to chicken and is okay with chicken, this can be a winner, you know. This can be an absolute winner. I do like it. Let me read the ingredients again. So turkey, 28%, 16% fresh turkey, dehydrated turkey, 12%. Okay. Chicken, 24%. Dehydrated chicken, 16%. Chicken gravy, 5%. Chicken fat, 3%. Peas, 16%. So peas, once again, we can have a very small amount of dogs, and we know this from experience, that will incur in flatulence because of high amounts of peas. So peas are the new kid in the world of starches, in the world of filler. You have to put some sort of carbohydrate in a dog food to make it stick, to make the kibble. To make kibble, you need a starch to glue it together, as it were. So that carbohydrate can be really poor quality or really massified, like wheat or barley or rice or cereals, or it can be something else. It can be apples, it can be peas, it can be potatoes, it can be whatever the case might be. Now, peas is a lot better, or lentils or garbanzo beans or whatever the case might be. Those tend to be a bit better. They are higher in terms of protein, absorption levels of protein. So peas can be good for your dog, but a tiny amount of dogs do incur in flatulence and they do not agree with the food. And if you are one of the unfortunate ones, then you might have to find another dog food. But if your dog doesn't incur in any of these, well, you are going to be onto a winner here. We then have glucosamine and chondroitin, which is going to aid joints, broccoli, spinach, tomatoes, blueberries, cranberries, all phenomenal. And then you have turmeric. Turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. Rosemary, phenomenal. Dried citrus, 33% protein. Yes. AVA is Pets at Home's home brand, as it were, and they promote it all the time. They recommend it by default. So do not be surprised if you go into Pets at Home and they by default say, hey, just take this, or the other one is Wainwright, and we are going to go into Wainwrights a little bit later. Let's look at AVA Optimum Health Medium Breed Adult Dry Dog Food, and this is the 15 kilos chicken. So the ingredients are 44% chicken, phenomenal, chicken meal 24%, fresh chicken 12.5%, chicken fat 5%, chicken gravy 2.5%. So the chicken breakdown there is chicken meal is the biggest, is 24%, fresh chicken 12.5%. I rather see fresh chicken as the first one inside the chicken umbrella and chicken meal be the second one. However, I do suppose you have to compromise in terms of price and quality. We then have brown rice 23.5%, maize 18%, and then salmon oil, brewer's yeast, etc. etc. It contains fructooligosaccharides, which are a non-digestible carbohydrate, is a sugar derivative, and can act as a probiotic. So you have a tale of two halves, as it were. We do like chicken, and that's 44%, and that's a high amount of chicken in the bag. I don't like the brown rice, and that's 23.5%, and maize 18%. So it is a lot of carbohydrate, and it's a lot of things that I don't like in a dog food. In terms of quality, this is run of the mill. They are always going to try to keep this food passable on a medium sort of footing. They aren't going to put amazing ingredients and jack up the price because you won't be able to afford it. The average punter won't be able to afford it because dog food is dog food to them at the end of the day, and they aren't going to drop the quality, and they aren't going to make it compete with Baker's, which is a much lower quality food. So if you are coming from a really, really low quality dog food, such as maybe Baker's or Pedigree or whatever, these would actually be a lot better than those in my opinion. But if you want something better for your dog, you would steer away from brown rice, you would steer away from maize, and you would want more fresh chicken than chicken meal. All in all, is protein 26%, which is acceptable. It's low in protein, it's high in carbohydrate. Crude oils and fats 14%. It is what it is. They recommend it by default, so if you don't have to buy it because someone says it. The optimum health sensitive skin and stomach, and this is again the 15 kilos. The ingredients are fish, 42%. Fish is easier for dogs to digest, so that's why sometimes it is recommended if your dog has a bit of an icky tummy. By the way, if your dog has a bit of an icky tummy, do not give them chicken and rice. This blanket advice from vets to feed their dogs chicken and rice when they have an icky tummy is outdated advice. And go back on the channel because there's a couple of videos there that explain why you should never feed chicken and rice to your dog if they have an icky tummy, especially rice. White fish meal, 20.5%. White fish, 19%. Fish stock, 2.5%. Tapioca, 20%. Okay, sweet potato, 18.5%. And then chicken fat. If your dog has a sensitivity to chicken, and here it says that it's a fish recipe, it still contains chicken. A lot of foods will add chicken as a binder or will use chicken because it's a very cheap form of fat. It's a very cheap form of an additive. And so even though you think you are only giving your dog a specific food, it might also contain chicken. So all in all, this is again an okay food, just as the other one really. Fish, okay, but then you have tapioca, which is a massive filler, and then sweet potato on the high side. Protein, 24%, is again quite low in my opinion. Let's look at the weight management one, and this is the 15 kilos as well. We have chicken 35%, so we have a lower quantity of chicken, which is not great in my opinion. Chicken meal, 26.5%, fresh chicken 5%, rice 25%, whole oats 17%. And beet pulp. And then you have pea starch, bruised yeast, whole dried eggs, salmon oil, etc, etc. Protein 27%, so this is a slightly higher protein content. However, it's hard to say where the extra protein is coming from. Maybe from the dried egg, maybe from the oats, like a little bit of protein derived from the oats. In any case, this is not a superior food to the other one. I wouldn't give my dog this if he needed to go on a diet. I would just feed the dog less. Overall calories is what matters when it comes to losing weight, period. If you need to lose weight, if you reduce the amount of calories, you will lose weight irrespective of what you eat. You can eat McDonald's and you can eat fewer calories than you need and you will lose weight. That's just calories in, calories out really. So if your dog needs to lose weight, I wouldn't give companies any more money. I would teach myself a little bit about nutrition. I would watch channels like this, and that's what you do really. You educate yourself and you save yourself a lot of money in the process, because a lot of these labels are just marketing. Plus, we don't want a lot of these carbohydrates, which do very, very little for our dogs. So AVA, Pets at Home's brand, they recommend it by default. They always have it in abundance. So I suppose that if you want a run-of-the-mill and okay dog food and your dog is okay on this, then you can go and buy it. If you think you want a little bit better, and if you think you can afford something a little bit better, there are many foods on the market that are a lot better than this. Wainwrights. This is the turkey with rice. Remember, anytime I see rice in a recipe, I am very, very skeptical, because it's never 2% rice. It's never 5% rice. It's always 30, 40, 50% rice, and I don't like that. Now, Wainwright is another of Pets at Home's brands, and this one, they, again, recommended by default. They will just give you this food, recommend this food, or put you on this food by default, because, you know, they want to draw you back into the store. It doesn't really have anything magical. Turkey, 36%, that's good. Dry turkey, 31%. Freshly prepared turkey, 5%. You see, once again, I'd rather have the freshly prepared turkey first and then the dry turkey second. But freshly prepared turkey is more expensive than dry turkey. We then have rice 26%, whole grain barley 17%, and then we have oats and peas and carrots and whatever. Protein 26%. I wouldn't feed this to my dog. It's very, very high in carbs. Rice 26%, whole grain barley 17%. I'm just not a fan of. I just can't get on board with anything with this much rice, with anything with this much barley. I'm sorry. The plant-based protein from Wainwrights. So this is really, really interesting because in terms of saving the planet and being a vegan and all these things, anyone who's trying to tell you that dogs are better off, or cats, on a plant-based diet or a vegan diet know absolutely nothing about nutrition. They will not tell you about absorption rates of protein. They will not talk about highly processed foods. They won't tell you about dietary requirement for dogs and cats. They will not talk about things like amylase, which is the enzyme that breaks down starches, aka carbohydrates, that dogs and cats do not have it, whilst we do, because we can eat everything. We are omnivores. They will not talk about leucine, which is a very essential amino acid. They won't talk about macros. They won't talk about anything about nutrition. They will talk about saving the planet, and they will talk about sustainability, and they'll talk about all these things. We think plant-based foods for dogs and cats are a horrible idea, and don't think you should do that. Now, sweet potato 26%, rice, maize gluten, sunflower oil, peas, vegetable stock, carrots, alfalfa, seaweed, etc., etc. So you have a bunch of carbohydrates, and the protein content is 20%. 20% again is very, very low. Now, the quality of the protein also matters. Protein coming from fresh chicken, protein coming from fresh venison, protein coming from salmon is a lot higher quality than protein coming from maize gluten or rice or sweet potato. You only need a chicken breast to get a lot of protein, whereas you would need a lot, and I mean a lot, of rice or sweet potato to get the same amount of protein, because some foods are a lot more protein rich than others, and carbohydrates tend to be very protein deficient, whereas protein rich foods like chicken, eggs, that sort of thing, they are very rich in protein, and that's what we want to be paying for. We don't want to be paying for plant-based dog foods and stuff. And I suggest that if your dog or cat has any dietary requirements, any allergies or whatever, and someone has talked you into feeding your dog a plant-based diet, do more research. We have interviewed a couple veterinarians, plant-based veterinarians, vegan vets, and they do not talk about nutrition. They talk about sustainability, they talk about saving the planet, they talk about being vegan themselves. If your dog has an allergy, a plant-based diet is not really going to cut it. I would highly encourage you to do a lot of research into the matter, because it might not pan out very well for your doggy. Origin. So Origin is a very interesting brand because it was acquired by Mars, the makers of Royal Canin, among others. And a lot of people started criticizing the brand for being acquired by one of the big three. And a lot of people, like myself, do not like Royal Canin, and they do not like veterinary prescription diets because we deem those foods not suitable for dogs, because we don't like the ingredients. Now, a lot of independents have now flipped and said that Origin, they don't like it, blah, 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 they are sellouts, whatever the case might be. My opinion is that this food is still really, really good. And Mars wouldn't have acquired them had it not made an absolute humongous impact and had probably hurt their sales worldwide. So that's why they've bought it. They aren't stupid, the people from Mars. So Origin is a very good food. It's incredible the way it's made, and no, it doesn't cause DCM, dilated cardiomyopathy. So there's still a lawsuit up and running, and it's sort of been hushed after the Mars acquisition, and we haven't heard anything else about DCM, grain-free foods, and Origin being linked to dilated cardiomyopathy. So if you are one of those warriors, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Now, the composition here is phenomenal. Fresh chicken, 25%, raw turkey, 8%, fresh chicken giblets, liver and heart, 7%, raw whole herring, raw whole hake, fresh eggs, raw turkey liver, dehydrated chicken, dehydrated turkey, dehydrated mackerel, dehydrated sardine, dehydrated herring, and then they add a bunch of botanicals and pinto beans, navy beans, whole carrots, fresh apples, fresh pears, fresh beet greens, fresh turnips, cranberries, etc., etc. Is an 85% bag of dog food in terms of not protein, but animal ingredients going into the blender. The protein is 38%, which is very, very high. It's extremely high. It's almost double, if not double, a lot of the foods that we have covered. So your dog is going to be more satiated for longer. You are going to have to not put as much food out for your dog. Your dog is going to probably and hopefully be happier with a higher quality dog food, higher quality protein. We, and myself included, I cannot be biased, and I cannot be a hypocrite. And if I live by the sword, which are the ingredients, I die by the sword, which are the ingredients. And the ingredients in Origin are absolutely wonderful. The only reason why I wouldn't recommend Origin is if your dog has any allergies and you don't really know what the dog is allergic or reactive to, because they don't do single protein foods. This, for example, contains chicken, turkey, hake, herring, dehydrated sardines, etc., etc. So you have a multitude of wonderful sources of protein. But if you are just trying to isolate and go on a single protein food, then Origin is not going to be for you. But as a generic dog food, they do the poultry one, they do a red meat one, and they do fish, exotic fish. It's still a really good company. The same can be said for Acana. Champion Pet Foods owns Origin and Acana have decided to change recipes and change ingredients, and that's why, full disclosure, we stock Origin. We do not stock Acana anymore because the quality we deem it isn't as good as Origin. But Origin still to this day, if you look at the ingredients, if you look at the bags, if you look at how things are made, I do not care who manufactures this, who owns this. I only care about happy dogs, healthy dogs, and good food for dogs. So even if Mars, who also own Royal Canin, which I don't agree with, now stock or have Origin on their portfolio, well, it is what it is. You know, I'm gonna be real with you, and I'm gonna be very, very honest with you, which is what I would think you want from me. You want me to be honest, and you want me to give you the truth. You don't want me to sugarcoat things, or you don't want me to hide things. We sell Origin, we don't sell Acana. We think to this day Origin is probably one of the best foods you can get on the market. Whether that will change or not will depend on the ingredients. If the ingredients carry on being the way they are, we will still like the food. And if they don't carry on the same way, we won't like the food. But again, Origin, phenomenal. Protein, very, very high. Remember, there isn't such a thing as too much protein. The body either consumes protein or oxidizes the protein. We do not have the ability, no one has the ability to transform that protein into fat. It doesn't really happen with protein. Edgar and Cooper, grain-free, adult dry dog food, venison and duck. Venison is going to be more expensive. Duck is going to be more expensive in the restaurant, in supermarkets, and in dog food as well. Fresh duck, 35%. Hind duck, good. Sweet potato, 22%. Peas, pea protein. Fresh venison. Interesting. So grain-free venison. So venison is the first thing they put on the front of the packet. However, it's only 5% of the recipe. Fresh duck is 35%. That's a bit deceiving in my opinion, Edgar and Cooper. £72, £73 for 12 kilos, and you only put 5% venison and 35% duck, 22% sweet potato, duck gravy, etc., etc. Chamomile, balm, manna oligosaccharides, fructooligosaccharides, which is a sugar derivative, is a non-indigestible carbohydrate, apples, pears, blueberries, etc., etc. Protein 25% protein, 70 odd pounds. Royal Canin, veterinary hypoallergenic. The term hypoallergenic doesn't mean anything. The term hypoallergenic refers to a list of ingredients that has never been defined. So I can put cow poop in a recipe and call it hypoallergenic. It doesn't really mean anything, and I'm going to show you why. The ingredients here are rice is the first ingredient. The second one is hydrolyzed soya protein isolate. So soya protein has a high level of absorption, is a good quality of protein irrespective of what anyone says. If you look at the world of bodybuilding, soya protein is a really good source of protein. However, we want to be paying for animal protein. Hydrolyzation is the process of breaking down molecules with water so they can be absorbed better by the body. So if you have been recommended this food, it's because your dog has some sort of allergy, some sort of pruritus, dermatitis, itching, scratching, that sort of thing. So hydrolyzation is meant to aid this absorption of protein. We then have animal fats. So animal fats, once again, is very, very unspecific. If you have a dog with an allergy and we give the dog animal fats, will we know what fats are they consuming? We don't know. They will be able to change, or they reserve the right to change the meat, the recipe from batch to batch to batch. And today the dog is okay. Tomorrow the dog is not going to be okay. Hydrolyzed poultry liver, again, fish oil, etc., etc. So rice is the first ingredient. This is a big no. The second one is hydrolyzed soya protein isolate. Okay, this is a feat of engineering. This is a feat of science more than anything. And then we have animal fats. And animal fats, once again, if you have a dog that is reactive to chicken, and I give my dog chicken and the dog keeps on scratching or itching or having allergies, I can remove chicken and give the dog turkey or beef, kangaroo, goat, lamb, whatever the case might be. But I want traceability. The problem with Royal Canin is that they put animal fats. So any veterinarian recommending this as a hypoallergenic food when rice is the first ingredient and protein is 21%. This is very low quality protein. This is very low quality in terms of protein, very low in protein. And once again, if your dog is hungry all the time on this food, is because protein has a high level of satiety. So if you feed your dog something like this, they aren't going to be as satiated as if you feed them something else. So this is not a food we would recommend. This is not a food we sell. This is not a food we like. This is just not a food we would ever feed anyone. And it doesn't really matter what they say, whether it's for French Bulldogs, Maine Coons, hypoallergenic, analergenic, whatever the case might be. This Royal Canin is not a good brand. And if you're a veterinarian or you love Royal Canin, listen, more power to you. We don't like it. We don't endorse it. And we specialize in nutrition. We only specialize in nutrition. It's an opinion, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. Hill's prescription diet. This is the diabetes. So diabetes is actually one of my fortes, pancreatitis and diabetes. Forgive me if I get too technical. So the first ingredient is chicken, which is good. The second ingredient is wheat, which is a very high glycemic carbohydrate. If your dog or yourself have diabetes, it's because you are having trouble regulating your blood sugar levels. And so if you feed yourself a lot of high glycemic carbohydrates, a lot of refined foods, you are going to have a really, really hard time. Your pancreas is going to have a very hard time regulating blood sugar levels because your pancreas isn't working properly. Your pancreas has two different roles, an exocrine function and an endocrine function. Health science hypoallergenic. Once again, the term hypoallergenic refers to a list of ingredients that has never been defined, so it doesn't mean anything. Dried potatoes, 19% is the first ingredient. That says a lot about this food. Dried peas, potato starch, salmon meal, 12% will then have animal fat, very unspecific. The protein here is 19.9%. That is very low protein. Your dog needs protein coming from animal sources. I will say time and time again. Proplan gastrointestinal. So this is recommended or prescribed whenever your dog has an ichthyotomy or gastro problems. So if your dog has gastro problems, the issue there is probably low quality dog food. Sometimes as dogs age, the glycocalyx, which is the outer layer of the stomach, gets permeated, and that's what triggers a lot of gut upset. And let me tell you something, rice and corn and pea protein and dried poultry protein aren't going to soothe your dog's stomach. Your dog is optimized to digest and eat protein coming from animal sources. So rice being the first ingredient, and pea protein and corn, those aren't good ingredients. We then have dried poultry protein, which is quite unspecific, and then we have soy protein, pork fat. So if your dog is reactive to pork, you are giving your dog pork there. So we have 24% protein, and that's low in protein for the price. This is not a dog food we would ever recommend. We wouldn't sell this even if we made more money, and that's just our stance. We just don't like it. Beta, salmon meal, 17%. The first ingredient is salmon. That's great. That's 17%. And then wheat, not good. Corn, not good. Rice, not good. As a generic rule of thumb here, generally speaking, no rice, no wheat, no barley, no corn, no meat and animal derivatives, no sugar or sugar derivatives, no rice, and none of this malarkey. So wheat, corn, and rice, absolutely not. Proplan, HA hypoallergenic. So this is the most recommended dog food in the United Kingdom by veterinarians. And let me tell you something. If I am giving my kid or a baby a biscuit, I'm not going to trust the manufacturer on the front. As you can see here, these have vitamins and minerals and iron and calcium and whatever, but they also contain sugar. So if the biscuits contain sugar, I am going to think twice about giving my baby sugar. Now, as a one-off, maybe I give them a little treat, but it wouldn't be a recurring thing, because sugar, hyper-palatable foods, very caloric dense, not very good. That incurs in a lot of your diabetes, your pancreatitis, your obesity, not very good. Here, cornstarch, hydrolyzed soya protein. Soya protein is actually a very good source of protein. Hydrolyzation is a process of breaking down molecules with water so they can be absorbed better by the body, so it's really good. Coconut oil, it's okay. Minerals, okay, but then it contains sugar. So anytime I see sugar in pet food, that just drives me insane, because I don't want to see sugar in pet food. Sugar or sugar derivatives makes dog food and cat food very, very highly palatable, and that's not something I want. I want my dog eat good food, not sugary foods. So if your vet is recommending Purina HA and you see it contains sugar, I would never ever feed my dog or cat anything sugary. I don't know you, I'm against it. Cornstarch is the first ingredient, and then we have coconut oil, sugar, and hydrolyzed soya protein, rapeseed oil, etc., etc. The protein content is 21%, which is simply not enough to sustain your dog. Your dog's level of satiety, once again, is not going to be very high, because protein has the highest thermic effect of food, has a very high satiety. So your dog needs protein coming from animal sources. There isn't such a thing as high protein. Your body either consumes protein or oxidizes the protein. There is no such a thing as too much protein. We will never sell this sort of food. We will never recommend this sort of food. And I don't think the industry should be selling sugary things. So this is a no from me, a rotund no from me. Absolutely not. Chudleys, working dry dog food. Again, it doesn't attract VAT. Whole grain wheat, whole grain oats, poultry meal, whole grain maize, whole grain barley, hydrolyzed chicken, beet pulp, prairie meal, whatever prairie means, rice, yeast. Listen, whole grain wheat, whole grain oats, poultry meal, maize, these aren't good ingredients. That's not a good food. Burgess, Superdog, Greyhound and Lurcher. It doesn't really matter what dog breed you have. You might have a dog that's a large breed as opposed to a tiny breed and might incur in some joint health issues. Or you might have a dog with proneness for diabetes. If you have a Westie, for example, or a Dalmatian, which might need low purine foods. But if you have a Greyhound or a Lurcher, that doesn't mean you should buy a dog food that has a Lurcher or a Greyhound on the front. That makes absolutely no sense. It's marketing nonsense. Whole grain wheat, poultry meal, whole grain maize, dried beet pulp, poultry fat. It is what it is, basically. I wouldn't recommend this. Taste of the Wild, High Prairie, grain-free, dry dog food, venison and bison. Bison is a novel protein, phenomenal. Bison 12% is the first ingredient. We then have lamb meal, chicken meal. So we have 1, 2, and 3. The first 3 ingredients are animal proteins. And this is something we absolutely like. We then have some filler, sweet potatoes, peas and potatoes and canola oil. We then have egg product and beef and roasted venison. So there are some high quality proteins there that I like. Egg is a phenomenal source of protein. If you want to give your dog a raw egg with the shell, that is so beneficial for them. 2, 3, 4 times a week. Extra calcium, extra added protein. Eggs contain everything your dog needs in terms of protein. Is a phenomenal source of protein in terms of protein absorption. So even if you buy this food or any food whatsoever and you crack an egg open and you just mix it with the kibble, incredible, absolutely phenomenal. Bison 12%, lamb meal, this is a very, very competent food. We then move on to Nature's Variety, and this is a freeze-dried food. So freeze-dried is frozen at thaw, so frozen when it's raw, which makes it extremely high quality. They then remove the water, remove the moisture, and the process is extremely expensive to do here in the UK. The UK market to this day isn't ready for a freeze-dried dog food, and you will know this because if you look at any freeze-dried manufacturer, the price you are asked to pay is absolutely astronomical. And this goes for brands like Koya, for example. There's James and Ella, and the price is super high. Here, there's about £60 for 7 kilos. Deboned free-range chicken meat, 28.5%. We then have dry chicken protein, not chicken, but chicken protein at 21%. And then dry peas, dry chickpeas, poultry fat, etc. If I'm going to pay £60 for 7 kilos, I want deboned free-range chicken meat at 80%, not 28.5%. I do not want to see poultry fat, and I don't want to see pea starch and chicken protein. I want the real deal. Protein is 28.5%, which is a little bit low. It's an okay food, but for the price is extremely expensive. The UK market, once again, isn't ready yet for freeze-dried dog food. It's very laborious, it's very energy consumptive. Consumptive? I don't know whether that's a word. It requires a lot of energy to make it. It's very expensive, hence the price. So freeze-dried dog food, if you are a raw feeder and you go on holiday, maybe something like that would work for you. That's why they sell them in like 1.5 kilos or 3 kilos. But it's very expensive, and it is what it is, really. Gullet, and this is a food I wasn't familiar with. And, Golden Retriever, super cute. I have a golden retriever. I love the breed. White rice, 30%. Chicken meat meal, 20%. Maize, barley, dried maize protein, dried brewer's yeast, chicken fat, etc., etc. Not a very good food. So white rice, chicken meat meal, once again, being the lowest quality or one of the lowest quality protein sources there are. Just the rendered powder that then gets reconstituted. I'm just not a fan. Maize and barley, absolutely not. And then we have NutriBalance, where the ingredients are whole barley, chicken meat, whole maize, rice, sugar beet pellets, poultry oil, turkey meal, turkey digest, salmon oil, etc., etc. So barley, chicken meal, whole maize, rice, sugar beet pellets, etc., etc. It is what it is, really. This isn't a good food. We don't like maize. We don't like rice in dog food. And we don't like all these ingredients. But for the price, what do you expect? Now, we have hundreds of videos on nutrition. So if your dog has any allergies, any pruritus, dermatitis, any icky tummies, if your dog has any dietary requirements, we have free allergy seminars. We have so much information that we put out for free, and it's quite scientific, and it will save you hundreds or thousands of pounds at the vet. We have free guides on how to make your own dog food, what to look up for, etc., etc. So we are full of resources. I cannot emphasize enough the free How to Feed Your Dog Better guide down below, and that's going to teach you a lot about dog food, what to look up for, what not to feed, etc., etc. And in our opinion, that is a phenomenal resource. Let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next one.